So we started with hymn number 1 from the book 5 and just dwelt on the first verse only. I will go through it and come to the next one and next. Abodhi agnih samidha jananam pratidhenum ivayatim ushasam yahvaiva pravayam ujjihanach prabhanavach sisrate nakam acha. So awaken is the fire by the kindling of those who are born in the body and moved towards the cow, feeding cow, as if to the feeding cow, approaching him dawn, as a calf moves towards his mother. Yahweh Iva, and full of energy as if Pravayam Ujjihanach, we rose up, or like the flames full of energy, Prabhanavach, Sisrate, moving Nakam Acha to the heaven directly. So in the morning, the whole world is waking up and moving upward in this evolutionary journey, upward towards heaven also. We all rise up. Yeah, in the morning we rise up, the fire is rising up, the birds are flying up, everything goes up to heaven. And our day is the opportunity to move towards heaven. It's closer to heaven. Every day is a step forward on the evolutionary journey.
Just one in terms of words. Acha, what would acha mean here?
Directly, it's indeclinable in the Veda, which means directly or precisely. We can also open. And that, I think it is in Hindi
What is this
left.
program that you have? Etat kim program asti?
It's the Monier Williams dictionary on PC.
Acha.
Oh, here it is. Acha. You see with long I, indeclinable, to towards.
Prati, like a prati then.
Yeah. Like prati, or prati is a little like against. Acha is totally onto. Prati has kind of separation. This more towards, or I translate it to usually directly, kind of.
That's interesting because we have in Hindi, we have the acha, which means yes.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering whether it has this kind of a root somewhere. Acha.
I think it
Acha.
is. Acha is
In
Hindi.
Hindi,
Acha is, yeah. I think it is.
it comes from this idea of
Yeah.
towards like acceptance of.
Yeah, towards or directly. Yes, clearly. Yes, it's in that direction. Acha. Acha means not really yes, even in Hindi. It's something like okay,
Good.
rather.
It's good, right? It has all those kind of connotations.
Mhm. Right.
Sorry,
Okay.
just another one, last one here is Vayam. Vayam is moving the path. Vayam.
Vayam is from word V, which means the bird.
E,
If you
the
will,
bird.
yeah. Maybe they even have Vayam here. No, they don't have. It is from V, that's what they suggest, which means the bird. You see this bird. And Vayam is, in this case, is Shashti Bahuvachanam. Unusual. Here it is, let me say, Veti. Maybe it will not give me the form. No, it doesn't give me in the dictionary. But V has many meanings.
It's
Like
a female bird, it said, the last but one.
Yeah. Female
Mm.
bird or bird, and Vayam is Shashti Bahuvachanam, but doesn't fit. There's a difficulty in translation. Sri Aurobindo avoids birds altogether. You will find in other translations, like of the birds rising up, full of energy, the beams of fire reach straight to heaven. Yeah, like of the birds. What of the birds? Energy like flames flying up to heaven of the birds. So of the birds doesn't make sense much here. So I suggest that this Vayam has the same stress as Vayam Vishota is we.
Mm.
Yahva Pravayamu Jihana, as we, full of energy in the morning, rise, Ujjihana, rising up. Yeah, the flames reach straight to heaven. I say we, interestingly, because the lengthening of the vowel takes place in Rigveda often without any explanation, just like that. For the sake of stress or for the sake of, meter. So in this case, it is stressed vayam as we. I think this is rather that than the of the birds. Of the birds is very difficult to put here into meaning. It should not be Shashti then, like the birds should be, yeah? And not Vayam. Anyhow, oh, here it is, genitive plural question mark, because it is, we do not know.
And because
Vinam
then you
should be,
the
not
the
Vayam.
root would have to be, yeah, the root.
Yeah, the proper of V would be Vinam, yeah, and not Vayam. But it's a suggestion of by the by the grammarians that they didn't find that Vayam we. I like Vayam we because Jananam here, because of this, by the kindling of those who are born in the body. And now reference to our, the first person. Yeah? So, and we, full of energy, rising in the morning, like the flames of Agni, yeah, reaching now flames of Agni already reaching into the third person, saying a plural, reaching to the heaven directly. So in a way, it fits grammatically. Okay, second verse. Abodhi hota Yajathaya devan urdhvo agnih sumanav pratarasthat samidhasya rushad adarshi pajo mahan devas tamaso niramochi. Awaken, the priest of our oblation has awakened for sacrifice to the gods. That is Sri Aurobindo's translation. With the right mentality in him, strength stands up, exalted in our mornings. He is entirely kindled, red flashing the mass of him is seen. A great Godhead has been delivered out of the darkness. Um, the priest Hota, the summoner of the gods, is awakened. Abodhi. Abodhi is aorist passive voice. Yeah, with this e very. It's popular in classical Sanskrit also. Um, so Abodhi, awakened, was the fire to sacrifice literally the gods. I say to sacrifice in Sri Aurobindo also to the gods as the object, but literally it's an accusative, dvitiya bahuvachanam, yes? So rutyaj demands the direct object accusative. So if we translate it as it is, it would be to sacrifice the gods. Awakened was the fire, the invoker.
So just one thing, is it sacrifice it or offer in that sense of offer, no?
Right, but offer demands the direct object, yeah? What to offer. You offer something, yeah? The word offering is a bit, it requires the direct object. So sacrifice is something else. It's the word which we do not have in English other than sacrifice, and even that is misunderstood. Yeah?
Because yajna doesn't have so much of sacrifice idea. Does it have a lot of the sacrifice idea? Because in English, the word sacrifice means to give up. There is a, but in yaj, it means a conscious offering. Huh? It's more of a conscious offering than, of course, there is a giving up by a choice. So if I'm
Right.
choosing to
Surrendering,
offer
giving
to
up
the
by
god,
choice.
there is,
Yeah.
yes, there is a suffering in
But
that sense.
Sri Aurobindo has redefined sacrifice in all the chapters in
Mm.
synthesis, no? Ascent to
Mm.
the sacrifice. So he's clarified what sacrifice is, and maybe it is not too different from offering and the sacrifice. I think
Mm-hmm.
it is the spending of energies. You know? So where does that go?
Hmm.
It's actually to make the what is offered sacred, yeah, sacrifice.
Hmm.
It's like making everything our life sacred, making it full of meaning, full of presence of higher consciousness. Now, when it is said to sacrifice the gods, it means that to bring down the gods, to invoke and to bring down them into this lower hemisphere, into our darkened consciousness, and to make them work. So to say, to apply their higher consciousness in this lower context, so they may widen the scope of our perception, of our knowledge, of our being, feeling, emotions. And in that sense, it is kind of violating the God's status. They are staying in their own realm, happy being there. And then someone, summoner, invoker, invokes them and brings them down. He calls to them and they answer his call. They cannot but answer his call because he is the divine will, as Sri Aurobindo says. He is functioning here as a divine will, as aspiration, which calls to higher forces for help, to come down. And they come down. And then they start working here, whether they want it or not. And in that sense, it's in some way a violation of their status. You understand? Yeah, they don't want to come here by their own choice. They have to be invoked. We have to call to them, otherwise they will not come by themselves. Why should they?
If we take gods as faculties of consciousness, then anyway they are being offered, right? The point here is who are they being offered to? So if it is being offered to the ego, workings, then it is not sacred. But the moment they are offered here, the priest, P capital, then it becomes sacred. Is that how
Yeah,
it is?
absolutely. Who is calling? Yeah, that's what you're saying. If
Yeah,
the Agni is calling, if the
exactly.
ego is calling to these higher forces, of course it's a totally different scenario. Yeah? It's not Agni. It's just my desire to
And then
realize
it's the
something.
panis, no? It's the panis also then, the bargainers.
Yeah, panis is something plus to it. Yes, it is. These are the forces which are unconscious by their birth. They were born from the inconscient. And because of that, they do not, Sri Aurobindo says, they are not the enemies, by the way, in the secret of the Veda. They are rather unconscious beings. They do not know how to sacrifice. They do not know how to give themselves. And because of that, they behave in that way as enemies. They are karmendriyas. They are the Sri Aurobindo says senses of action, our hands, legs, speech. When they start moving, when they start acting, what happens that they steal the inner perception, the inner light which we receive. That's why the methods of yoga were developed to pacify them, yes, to make body immobile, to stop moving, to sit quiet, to close your eyes, to stop even thinking, to
I
stop even
understood.
breathing.
Yeah, I understood this Panis when I downloaded this app called Scrabble. You know, it's very interesting. It's supposedly not a mindless game, and I found myself like after I finished, I was playing with like 4 or 5 people simultaneously. You know, and between work, between stuff, I was going to make the next word, and then it just struck me that this is Panis at work. They just take away from you the conscious. This thing. I mean, you are helpless. You just are. So all addictions, I would say, are all Pani's work, right?
Very interesting observation. Yeah. It's like a mechanical work, mechanical move by the groove, by chitta. Chitta is offering, they offer whatever you comes to your memory, whatever force brings, you just act in accordance with that force. You are not aware of your being. You're not aware of your choices. You just flow
Yeah, so
with choice.
picking up your phone to check WhatsApp messages, or where you don't have control. You
Mhm.
don't have self mastery, but you are kind of doing it. That is all the Panis. But here, the gods being unconsciously sacrificed and consciously sacrificed is where the Agni plays a part, right?
Right, and they are aware because he calls them and he invokes them. He is summoning them, and when he summons them, they can't really refuse because they are actually partly him. Yeah, so and in that sense, he acts on their behalf. So he brings the more greater universal powers into action through him being present here. He already has established the connection, and now he has to bring more force, more specific force of himself from within himself, as it were. So he calls to them as to his own powers, and they can't refuse his call. They simply can't, because they are him. And that would be the whole hymn there in the second mandala, where there will be a description that Agni is every one of them. Agni is Rudra, Agni is Vishnu, Agni is Indra, Agni is Varuna and Mitra, Agni is everyone, Ashwins. When they come down and act here, then Agni is them. Yeah? Because he makes them act through his presence here. And that priest is summoner, we call, but he calls to them, but truly speaking, he brings them down. He awoke here to sacrifice them here, to bring their action into this transformational process. For that he awoke. He awoke to do the job of transformation of our nature by these higher powers. And this is the first phrase, Abodhihota Yajathaya Devan. Yeah, makes sense.
And I think we can interpret in the light of Sri Aurobindo the priest to be the psychic being, right?
Right. And this is Yajamana. It is the one, the flame within, the spark within, the psychic being who is becoming aware of his divine presence. Yes. And he
Also the
flames.
Jata Veda,
Huh?
sorry, also the Jata Veda, the
Jata
Agni
Veda.
knows the Jata
Yes,
Veda, knows
absolutely.
all births as a
Yeah,
psychic being in that sense.
absolutely. Jata Veda knows all the births because he is the psychic being. The psychic being knows all the births. And there is an element in it which is going beyond psychic being. It's a
Mm.
psychic presence, or let us say universal Agni. There is an
Okay.
individual and there is universal aspect to him.
Would you say the
Um,
universal or the cosmic part? Like,
yes, the cosmic energy within the nature, that very force we spoke about. Yes, about two. One is in the heart, other is in the nature, in the body, Kundalini Shakti, or everything which the heat within the nature, pushing nature forward. Yeah? That is the universal presence. Mother speaks about psychic presence in nature. Maybe that is the thing. Yeah? It is everywhere. It is in the flowers, it is in the plants, it is in the animals. But it is not yet formed into the psychic being as individualized being. So it will take place only in human beings, so to say, more and more individualized. And
But
that we call
Lakshmi,
psychic being.
here he is entirely rekindled. He refers to the priest.
Yes, to the yeah, Agni, yes, correct. It's all about him. Yeah.
So I was
He is
wondering
the
why
priest.
it is not capital to like priest.
Oh, priest here, meaning that, yeah, that means the divine faculty of our flame, yes? The one who does the whole yajamana, who orders the sacrifice, yeah? Who is the central part for whose sake everything is done here also. The divine present within our heart. So abodhi hota yajatchaya devan urdhvach, upward, agnih, Agni, Sumanach, with beautiful, perfect mind, Pratach, Pratach Kale, in the morning, Asthat, stood, Urdhvam Asthat, stood up, Samidhasya, of him kindled, Rushat, shining, flaming, Adarshi, is visible, aorist, passive voice, Pajas, Pajas is stuff, substance, flaming substance of him kindled becomes visible. Mahan Devach, the great God, Tamasach, from the Tamas, from the darkness, Niramochi, was delivered. It is again aorist, yeah? Amochi, Nich, out, was delivered out of the darkness. Has been delivered out of the darkness, says Sri Aurobindo. As such a vision, yeah? His shining pajas, his shining stuff, flaming, becomes visible. The great Godhead was delivered out of the darkness.
I'm saying with this, you really had to be very close to that source. With in the Kali Yuga, we've all got so far removed from this mightiness of this entire image. We live through very filtered layers of this kind of brilliance and this delivering out of the darkness and all.
It's quite interesting that the dawn is here because the dawn will play the role of the mother. You will see what the dawn will do in the next verse. So he moved towards the dawn. And as towards heaven, all the creatures in the morning moved, his flames moved. He is delivered in the morning because he is work to do here. The day is the symbol of the spiritual invoking spiritual work of transformation. Every day is the invoking light, is the symbol of this invoking and bringing light into action. And stepping upward, going upward, moving upward. So we are looking at Vedic imagery, which is using the imagery of nature for this description of the spiritual. Yes, a symbolic kind of imagery. So the symbols of this imagery, we see that the day and night, it is happening constantly. And moreover, we will see also that they correspond to these movements. The day is very active. We are actively engaged with different forces. We are overcoming obstacles. We are growing in consciousness. And then the night we fall asleep. And we bring all that we acquired during the daytime into the deeper inconscient in us, bringing all that we experienced into the deeper stuff which has to get that light. So this is a constant ongoing up and down every day. we are doing this unknowingly, we are doing this exercise of transformation.
But what if somebody is more receptive in the night than in the day?
Provoking question. Yes, it's a what will happen to yeah, I am very active in the night, also have many dreams, cannot sleep normal, cannot relax all the time doing something. I think still the night is to assimilate into the inconscient or unconscious parts of our being, into our vital, into our mental, into our subliminal, physical, the elements of that which our outer consciousness or the consciousness of the day acquired, understood. It has to sink in, as it were, and create the ground. If we are conscious in the night, it could sustain very interesting sadhana daytime. If you are totally aware of your nights, then you may connect days and nights together into one sadhana. That's what Mother wanted us to do, actually. She said about this, that if you become conscious in the night, the days become very different because it's a continuation of the same process. There will be uninterrupted consciousness, as it were. You don't disappear, you stay the same.
And I think, isn't the night and the day here symbolic also?
Say it again?
Isn't the night and aren't the night and day symbolic here? Like it's not literally.
Absolutely. The day is the awakening to the higher consciousness, invoking the gods. That's as devas. Devas are the full of light, yeah, from Ruddiv shining. These are shining beings. And this is the symbol of our action, invoking, bringing the gods down, acting with them, meeting all the obstacles, learning, discovering. And then when the night we sink down, we bring it into the levels to which we cannot reach, to the subconscious levels of our consciousness, to the subliminal levels. We dive in with the result of the day. So we achieved something, acquired certain new quality, and this quality has to sink down. And by this process, we are slowly evolving. We become more and more receptive, more and more capable. Because if we would not bring it down into the inconscient, there would be a gap between the two. Inconscient would stay by itself, subconscious being, and the conscious being live. And there is a gap between them. But we are crossing that gap constantly by falling asleep. And
Okay.
Sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Ritu, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just asking, what about Brahma Muhurat? And there are different Muhurats, they say, when you're more receptive to things and you should ideally do sadhana. What about that? I mean, where does it lie?
Well, this is Brahma Muhurta. Again, it comes from the Vedic vision of day and night as symbolic representations of our journey in life. And it is, we will discover at the end that it is totally true, actually, that our physical days and nights are nothing but spiritual days and nights. Only we forgot about this. We became so materialistic that we believe that they are just days and nights because the earth is rotating around the sun, and so we have to sleep because we don't know why. Just sleep. That's it. And where we go when we sleep, nobody knows, actually. We don't go anywhere. We lie on the bed. That's what we believe. Resting. But it is not so, in a way. We go somewhere, yes. And Brahma Muhurtam is the moment when, before the awakening, it is like that very fresh moment of creation, when the creation came into being. And to connect with it is kind of important for our consciousness. It's some kind of triggers the deeper memory in us, the deeper primordial memory of the beginning of time, because we are here from the beginning of time. We just don't remember it. we could not be here if we would not be here from the beginning of time, from the very first creation. So only we kind of develop into individual formation beings, and now this individualization is taking away from us awareness of that universal beginnings. But the Rigveda reminds us about that. And something else you wanted to say, Rashi? Yeah?
Yeah, it's very interesting. So you see, till 21st December, like for the energy workers, is a very important date because it's an ascension portal where a lot of energy is beaming and the planet is going through transformation. So a lot of people are doing many things. So just to help out more people to move forward with light, I opened this group and I have like 200 people who are following to whom I'm giving daily tools, which I channel, from you know who. So then today, in the today's message, they said that we are going to give you tools to wake up and to sleep. And for me it was important because as a theater person, all day I'm teaching or learning, and then the evenings I have rehearsals, and at night. So in Bombay I'm coming home at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, sleeping at 3:30. So in my life I could never tackle with a Brahma Muhurat, and it was such a pressure on my life how I can wake up at 3:34 if I'm sleeping only at 2:33. So then I met somebody and he said that see, we are global people also. So somewhere in the world it is 3:34 o'clock. Somewhere it is Brahma Muhurat, right? so I realized it is just so constricting to all the time follow these things. So what I realized that Brahma Muhurat, like you said, the period of awakening, it's like if you don't use an alarm and you wake up naturally, there is a period when you wake up before you fully wake up. So in that short little period, I feel that you have such a strong sense of divine connection, or you have some download, you have something that happens. And if you're consciously sleeping every night and you kind of offer yourself, so when you wake up also, in that, when you're not fully awakened, there is something, there is a connection which is connecting you, your entire process, inner process, even though externally you may be doing other things. Although most of us are all the time doing what we are doing consciously all the time. I mean, at least our work or our life or our mission is all unified that way towards this divine life. But even otherwise, I feel it is possible to live in that connect. I mean, I can only speak what I've tried. So that's what I'm sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Interesting. Sri Aurobindo himself was the whole night awake till 6 o'clock in the morning, and 6 o'clock in the morning he was going to sleep. So over years, so you don't have to be ashamed of this, that you sleep.
Wow, now you guess what I've got to tell the whole world. And nobody told me this. Now I can say, guess who was awake at night? Now nobody will tell me this like this, and tell me about liver and digestive system and pancreas and all of those things that the whole world tells. Oh, thank you, Vladimir. I love you.
Well, in this case, yes, of course, Sri Aurobindo didn't care about that Ayurvedic, kind of distribution of hours, what is healthy and what is not. He was totally engaged in this in activities, and for him it was silent. He speaks about the night, that in the night it is very silent and very concentrated. Spirit becomes very concentrated. Yeah, you can, and so. And when the whole world awakes, he falls asleep like Muni, When the world is asleep, he awakes. so that's Sri Aurobindo anyway. Yeah, I also try to live according to Ayurveda. It's hardly possible.
So I would say that this I'm sorry I switched off my video because it's very weak internet here. So I think in India, the philosophy of Ayurveda, for instance, so it's about local resources, and therefore I think Brahma Muhurta is that I have done both. Like there have been times, because Amal used to say that there is nothing particularly spiritual about getting up at Brahma Muhurta if it is accompanied by a lot of superiority complex or that arrogance, right? So he used to always say that per se is nothing, but I have tried both. I have had stretches of time when I would work late, and so I would get up at 7. But in the past few months, I have been getting up at 3:34, and I feel a distinct difference in
In
the
energy.
ability to, assimilate. And but as Rashi said, for that one needs to sleep at 9:30 as well. But when you live at the day very light, and if the psychic is more the one doing it, then I also have seen that the days where you are very light, even though you're working a lot, but
Mm.
you're not attached to the work you're doing, you need lesser number of hours to sleep. But of course, this 3:34, because it is in this particular context of India. I mean, yeah, it is 3:30 anywhere, but let's say in and around Ladakh, where I get up at 4, there is a stillness in the air. That everything is resting, and there is certain vibrational energy which is there, which aids. That's all.
Mm. Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's like an aid, like maybe
Mm.
vegetarian food or something like that. But I
If
think essential thing is elsewhere. And
Yeah,
these-
if you could connect both the spiritual and the natural together and see in the nature the spirit, that would be the biggest achievement. Yeah, really. We could get both supports from the Purusha within, from the nature, from the spirit within, and from the nature without.
like my colleagues sometimes ask that from where all this energy comes. Like you're up from 4:30, and I'm like non-stop one after the other till 9 in the evening. But it's a combination of both how you've lived your day and also what you do with that 4 o'clock waking up. It's both.
Yeah, yeah. But we have here a few people who don't sleep in that night. Yes, Anuradha also. Yes, and she goes to sleep in the morning most probably. You know?
And there are these circadian rhythms, as we know, the whole circadian rhythms of nature and our bodies. And I think if they're aligned, there is one feels a certain alertness and just,
Mm.
It's just interesting. I'd once done one of these observations for these Indian psychology classes. Or just pick up a project and try on that. You try to live according to certain values, practices, and see what comes up. So I tried surrender at some point, and it was quite amazing the insights that came through. Like one, for example, what Gitanjali ji also we said that um, the more we work selflessly, in the sense that our fatigue is directly proportionate to our image of our narrowed concept of what we are capable of. So if we work through our ego self a lot,
Mm.
then we believe the ego is capable of that much, and the load that it can take is that much. So then the fatigue that sets in is in proportionate to what we believe we are capable of.
Interesting. Yeah.
So
So,
in that experiment, it was just like saying, okay, no, let thy will be done. And when thy will be done, then it's a very different energy that works through, and then many
yeah.
things are possible.
So Anuradha, I was just last 3 months, my mantra has been this
Let thy will be done.
stanza of Amal's poem, that precious each moment laid in your hand, whatever the hue it bear, a flame and fragrance just because your fingers hold it dear. And make me or nothing, my whole life I'll drown in your vastnesses, a cry to be ruled by a flawless touch, your will alone my peace. So this is like a mantra japa I do, like every, as many times in a day. And I was driving all the way from Chennai to Orissa when I was relocating, and I was driving for 3 days, about 14 hours a day. And somehow on the last day, there was a truck that hit my car on the right, because I tried to save this guy on the left, the motorcycle. And you won't believe, I just stepped out, and this was playing in my hand, precious each moment, and I just offered that moment, considering it precious, whatever had happened. There was not an iota of any flutter in the heart, any fear, any anger on this driver. And those driver of the truck came running, apologizing, and And people who were with me, they asked me, "Will you be able to still drive?" Because it's a very tough. And it was absolutely calm in the heart, and I just drove again another 300 kilometers. So it's very powerful, this whole surrender thing which you just said, and it's so powerful. And it is in the Karma Yoga, the second, the first is karma, is the phala tyaga. The second one is the renunciation of modality. So actually, this is that, you give up the whole modality thing also. So it's very easy, just the day, one thing after another.
What do you mean by modality?
It's a preferred way of doing. It is bringing your swabhava or your thing into it, your way of doing. So when you become an instrument as the second stage where you're open to all kinds of approaches.
Wow, this happened to me only 4 days ago that I've become this. I didn't know what it was. This is so cool. I'm loving this class. I had my entire team have an entire meeting about what's going to happen in next 3 months without me. That was the biggest thing. So I am understanding what you're saying now. I understand. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and the whole purpose of being a leader, I think, is to become redundant, so that's a good leader who need not be there tomorrow.
But in my own experience, I realize it's much harder to actually carry it through till the end, in the sense that uh, I was angry with somebody for something, and I was trying to surrender things really hard to say, giving it up, giving it up. So for that moment, it would work, and you feel okay, surrendered. And then the next minute, again, that anger would come in, and then the question would be, then what did I give up and to whom? Like what was given up at all? Just like the surrender thing is, if one wants to do it completely, is a very hard call.
No, but what I have seen is surrender is not like you can even contradict or you can put your foot down. But the main difference is that there is a freedom in the heart. You don't feel the need to either be anxious about it, restless about it, or anything. It's not doing. It's sometimes very firmly, but sweetly sticking to what you want to do, because you know that's the truth, not because it's your way. It's a very beautiful distinction, actually.
Very nice. Yeah. So the difference is not in actually in the mental decision and distinction, black and white, which usually we perceive as distinction. It is the distinction is not so important. It is there, but it is secondary. It's like instrumental. The major thing is this: you're full of that conviction or some kind of presence which drives you, and that's it. And you're ready even to softly even get for a while kind of away from your way, as it were, but not getting away from your way. You come back to it softly. You see the sharp corner, you just flow around it. You don't break it. You don't fight with it. You're resisting my way of doing things. No,
Yeah.
it is
And
more inward. Yeah.
the most controversial thing I've done till date is to ban Peter Hughes' book. And I know through that experience what it is to be the instrument of the divine. So all through those 6 months, I just felt to be on the top of a wave. You were just there, fronting it, but somebody was working it. It's unprecedented in the history of India that a book is banned by a civilian, an individual. And there was neither any fear of anything, nor a need for any honor, nor a thing that, okay, you lose friends or any shame. It was just the thing to be done, and you knew it and you did it, even if the whole world was against you and you didn't want anything to in return. I just experienced it, what it is to be, in that moment and doing something that needs to be done. And there is a clear feeling, that something else is working. You are just there, in that situation, fronting the whole thing. And you're so free from all the honor and shame and people liking, disliking, and it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, when there is a higher cause, then usually people are ready to step out from all those kind of determinations. There is a age where once you're over it, for example, nobody can force, I think, me to deny the truth in the Veda. Yeah, it would be impossible to do, yeah? Or in Sri Aurobindo's.
Aurobindo.
Yeah,
Mm.
it would not be, because there is something. It's not conviction. It's not my preference. It's already something more than that. Eh, it's a kind of identity. How can you really change it? You know. So.
It's like somebody said, no, you just know it. You just
Mm,
know it. Like, how did Jeanne d'Arc know it?
mm,
That this is what she had to do. It's very beautiful. And I always aspire and pray to Mahakali that, like, even Arjuna, no, after the Mahabharata war, he couldn't lift the Gandhi and other things because he was an instrument and the work was over.
mm,
So my always prayer to the mother and Mahakali and everybody is that to not have you instrument just for one occasion, to be a constant instrument
mm.
in everything.
Yeah. This is a great thing, to be a faithful and obedient, surrendered instrument to the divine. There's nothing greater. Yeah, there's, as Mother says in her.
And the test of that is even when for years there's nothing Vishesh Karya that you're doing, you're still fine with it. You're just, that is the test. The moment there is a restlessness, even of being an instrument, there is a problem.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that problem is also important because you have to solve it. It comes to you because solving it, you're solving it for the whole humanity. It's in some way. A small victory in your field will add to that victory in bigger field. And we are all struggling. We are all helping each other unknowingly. Yeah, when we are victorious, when we fail, we also drag each other down a little bit. Mm. It's invisible, but it is there.
And
And
one thing very nice that helps is in somewhere in the Gita, Krishna says that past, present, and future are all in me. So I'm not looking for any fruit of your action because all the three things is in him. So all that I'm looking for is you working, remembering me. So it's a very liberating thought that actually there's nothing to, even this universe that I'm setting up, it's nothing time bound and this is something I have to do. In the larger scheme of things, it is in Krishna already, in his future. So all you have to do is just live your day. Very aram and liberating it is. And that doesn't mean you work less. You work even more, 18 hours a day, but with such a lightness.
mm, it's already realized in Krishna, so now you have all the things to allow Krishna to be present through all the play, and see him everywhere.
Sometimes it's very disheartening to see this Biden and then there's Taliban and now Syria and all of that.
Mm,
But then I remember that message Krishna says to Sri Aurobindo in Alipur jail, that do
mm,
you think you are doing it? I am behind it all. When he was making this list, ki, I will tell this to my lawyer.
mm,
And then Chittaranjan Das just comes and Krishna actually tells him that, don't you think that I am behind it also? Then I feel very aram, ki, theek hai. And
mm.
still you can do your work, but then you don't have to feel responsible for the whole world and all of that.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. Freedom in perceiving the divine behind every action. Mm. That's what she tells him in Alipur jail, is that everybody does my work, says Krishna. Even those who fight against me, they do my work. They just don't know about it. They think that they're driven by some force, of righteousness or hate or dogma. But while doing that, they will be meeting exactly people when they have to meet and impress in the exactly way how Krishna wants the whole development to take place. We just don't, They are not aware of it, and we are not aware. So this complexity we will never be aware of, because this is the vision of Yoga Maya, of Sri Krishna, or the Divine Mother. So we better to surrender to her and to allow her to work through us and to learn from it, see it, how it miraculously works out everything. It's really this arrangement which is impossible for our mind. Our mind would never be able to arrange it. It doesn't work that way for. And she does everything. The mother. All right, here we are in this next verse. Yadim Ganasya Roshana Majigach, I will read once through and we will stop here and come to this verse next time, which is profound. Yadim Ganasya, and we are on the third verse, third time we are meeting on this hymn. So when he has uncoiled the long cord of his hosts, strength shines pure by the pure herd of the radiances. Shuchich ankte shuchibhich gobhich agnich. And for the goddess who discerns, grows in plenitude and is yoked to her works, ad dakshina yujyate vajayanti. He exalted urdhvach, she extended supine uttanam urdhvach adhayat. He feeds on her with his flames of the offering, Johubhich. Now this is the relation of the mother and the Vatsa and the Dhenu, yeah? The cow and the calf. So ad means from far, or because, Sri Aurobindo translates for. Ad from there. It's a Vedic, indeclinable, like tasmat, ad. Dakshina yujyate vajayanti, she is preparing. My interpretation is a bit different. When Agni has awakened a long succession of his hosts, having become pure, shines with his pure rays, then the discerning power of the dawn becomes yoked to his work, not her work, I translate, bestowing the plenitude upon him, as it were. It is on her who is now spread vast. He feeds, standing high, with his flames supported by the offerings. He feeds on her light. In other place it is said that he comes to the dawn like bhikshu, like the beggar, begging, bhikshamana. He is begging for the light, for the delight from the dawn. Agni, can you imagine? So like the beggar, he comes to the dawn for the delight. She brings all her powers. She is the Divine Mother Aditi. She brings all the devas with her, devatas, all the great godheads, and they are feeding him from within. He grows by them in power. She becomes extended wide. She brings all the powers possible to engage, and he is rising up and becoming exalted and feeds on those powers with his flames of offerings. What a beautiful image. Yeah? The relation of the dawn and the flame within us. We are calling to her, she comes to us as the grace answers. And this calling is starting to feed on her grace and grows in his mighty presence here. It is a description of the next stage of their relationship of the Agni and the Usha. When Agni has fully awakened and uncoiled all his powers and hosts, all his powers he has to uncoil. It's like a DNA or some. He uncoils the DNA which has to fit with DNA of the spirit, as it were, with her vastness. Has become fully pure shining with the pure radiances of the dawn, notice. Then she discerns and grows in plenitude and is yoked to her and now to his works also, because there is no more distinction between the calling and the grace which answered, for there is no difference anymore. She grows wide all over, and he stands high and feeds on her with his flames of offering. This picture explains the mentioning of the dawn approaching Agni to feed as a cow the calf in the first verse. There are many beautiful passages in Savitri which we must read, which will correspond exactly to these verses. I kind of selected them here. We will read them next time. This is profound. Okay. You see, we are Veda is pushing us into some kind of vast perception of things, yeah, into the universal perception, where everybody finds his own kind of place naturally. It is for all of us, meaningful for all of us. It's not my development, it's our development of our flame, our calling, our transformative calling here in the world. And by the way, we can't do more than that. We are here only to call and to receive the answer. That's the best we can do. To call and to receive. To receive is important. Because when we call with one thing, even sincerely, when it comes, we may receive with other parts of ourselves, not with the same part which was calling. It has to match. Uncoiled the host of DNA, it has to match with, and she with her radiances has to fit exactly what she was called for. That's there. And that's what Mother says about receptivity. Receptivity is exactly that, to receive exactly for what it was called and to let it work exactly for what it was called. If there is a mismatch, then next time there will be more difficult for this force to answer. Yeah. If the grace is used for self-indulgence or self-enjoyment, not for the sake of why it was called and received, then next time she will not respond so easily to the call. And the call will be less sincere.
I think you summarized the entire purpose of sadhana in 2 lines, Sadhana.
Yeah. This is our sadhana. We can't change the world. We don't have the force. We don't have the means. Our ego is a hopeless, helpless thief who steals the delight to have a little ice cream here and there and to be excited about that. And that's it. And that ends there, dies there. And there is a greater capacity in us, which we have to realize one day. And that is it is coming with these powers which we call invoke. And then we change and we become what we really are in this manifestation. Shraddhalu had a very beautiful, some of you have been there, yes, with his presentation on science and spirituality, and he spoke about ether, and that the ether was removed from physics, and because of that, the whole physics started to look for some answers, theory of relativity, Einstein, and black matter, whatever, but not ether. But if we accept the ether as the first transition from the spirit to this manifestation, as it is described in the Upanishads, that Akasha comes from Atman and from Akasha Vayu and so on, then we can see that transition was there, understood by the ancient rishis. The transition from the spirit to nature was established through ether. Now we have a gap there. It's something which is not gelling, not coming together. We are just wondering, what is this world about? Yeah, there is some spirit beyond, and there is some world here. So, but where is the transition? Where is that knot that ties together the stars? Why the stars are kept together? Why we are all meaningfully kept together? What is that Samam Brahma which holds things together? And that is the transition of ether, which was lost in the physics. I just added at the end, which was, some of you have been there. It is such a great vision. Then the whole nature becomes spiritual. It's not really something else. It is the spirit, manifested spirit, because ether was the transition. As simple as that. And it is still there. It is very difficult to detect because it's one-dimensional reality. It's like one-dimensional, one-polar magnet. Can you detect one-polar magnet? Can't. And it holds everything. It holds electromagnetic, gravitational waves. It holds everything within. The light is, what is this photon? Nobody knows what photon is, traveling through this empty space. What empty space? There is no empty space. It's ether. It's a container which holds the light, all light within itself. Marichi in the Veda, those particles of light in the space, they are everywhere. And they were wondering, quantum mechanics, how come that in vacuum suddenly the atoms appear, or electrons? Where do they come from? They were not there, and then suddenly they are there. They are always there. The ether is there, holding it. They can appear wherever and disappear wherever. It's a tapestry which holds together the stars. All right, I will stop here. There's something in the chat box. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's close with mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santo Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, Vladimir.
Hari
Bye
Om.
bye. Have a
See
good
ya.
day.
See
Oh,
you.
next
Thank
Monday I may not be there.
You won't be there, no? Next time.
I will be, I don't know, I'm in Madhuban. So I don't know if they don't have Wi-Fi in the ashram.
Oh,
So
they
No,
have.
you
Madhuban, they have.
Rashi, I went to Madhuban a while back. You'll get internet. I did a class from Madhuban.
super. That's perfect then. Because it's written in the message that there is no Wi-Fi from the guest house. So,
There is no Wi-Fi, but the internet is weak, but you'll get it.
okay. Then Vladimir, I'll be there. And Preetu, it looks as if you're on a set, you know, like your whole lights, the blue and the green and the yellow. The minute I saw, I was like, oh my God, she's on a set. She's in a performance.
No, I just
Vladimir,
ran
right.
the
Mad
like
guru.
nonsense.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay,
See
see
you
you.
all.
See you. Bye. Yes, Anuradha. Yeah, with our meeting, yes?